I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, I totally forgot to mention.
See that last one?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I one.
I knew it was too easy.
We just realized that Mike's went out, so she's getting us. No, I just meant board meetings in general. I don't know about special.
Does it matter which one goes in?
Good. Okay, audience introductions.
Jessica.
Welcome, Jessica. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to the items on the agenda today? All right. Oh, we need approval of our agenda.
I'll move.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Agenda passes. Items for board action. We didn't do this one the other way. We didn't do information first.
Yeah, I know, I said something to you today, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I
You
replied,
responded,
yeah.
Yeah, okay, I didn't get a chance to look at it. Yeah, she had already sent this one the
Okay.
other day, so. So this is setting the numbers. You folks already have the numbers that were sent to you on Friday morning, but we just made one slight adjustment to the freshman class. One student moved to Idaho today, or we got the paperwork today. We knew it may be coming, but we didn't hear a confirmation from parents, so that's why we left the number where it was the other day until we got confirmation today. So that dropped the number down to 299 total for K through 12 current enrollment. And with that, you see the orange boxes to the right. That student had 2 other siblings. So then that would change that number. Sophomore was 3 siblings before, and the juniors were 2 siblings before. So with that student not being here, they would not have siblings. We're not sure at this time if they are moving with that student or if they're staying and still interested. We're just not sure yet. So their name would still be on that list for the lottery list if they chose it, if they're drawn and they chose to come here and they're still in Oregon, then obviously that would work out. So with that, we talked about some of our numbers. Christy and I went back and looked at the portables in the spring, and then we had students in there this summer. And then we also looked at the bathrooms, and it sounds like we're going to be getting rid of that kindergarten portable or modular much sooner than we thought maybe originally. There is some asbestos in the ceiling in there, so we'll have to do some abatement, then they'll look to get rid of that after they do the abatement on it. So that are hoping to do that in the fall. So that changed where we were looking at putting our students. We didn't feel comfortable putting the kindergarten and first grade obviously down here in the same hallway as some of our high school students. And we didn't want the kindergartners and first graders not only trying to traverse the halls with them, but also that walk to the bathroom a lot with kindergartners, first graders would have been problematic for our assistant all day long. So we moved them to the modulars. So K-3 is going out in the modulars for this summer or this school year. And they each have their own bathroom, as you know, out there. And so with that, with all the items and the small groups that we're looking at, we had on there 20 students for kindergarten, 21 for first, 27 for second, and 24 for third. Those are the ones that are out in the modulars. Obviously, the second grade classroom is a large one. That's just the way those numbers fell with some of our in-district students before. But when you figure out those numbers plus fifth grade and fourth grade together, we averaged 24 students already. And we didn't think that putting the other students in there made sense at this time. We are open to discussion, obviously, and you folks have the final say on that. If you want to open it up for discussion, we can have more conversation about it. But we thought that the first grade, having an average of 24 was probably where we wanted to have that at this point. And with that, we didn't have any siblings in those younger grades either, as you can see. The only one that we had in the elementary was this class that already has 28. So we're not looking to add that sibling in there. It's just too large of a class already. Fifth grade will be in the library again this year. And then fourth grade will be in the last classroom in the high school hallway that Mrs. Reyes used to have. It's right next to the library, and then it's right across from my office.
I figured you were gonna move, putting them across from you.
That'll be fine. I actually saw a student at the park. I went and got some dinner, and I sitting in the park in Dallas, and they said, "Hey, I get to have my class across from you this next year." So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is fun.
That's still a good thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take it. We had it all started. It was kindergarten and first kinder and pre-K this summer. So, are there any questions that we can answer for elementary? No? Okay. And then the next one, middle school. Obviously, the number that's glaring is the 8th grade class. Obviously, 6th grade is large enough, and it's a little bit higher than what we would want. The 7th grade has 24 students, and then thinking along those lines, and we realize there may be some students returning next year. With 8th grade, although going into high school, that could help even out a little bit. That we were asking for a total of 8, which would put us at 23. Up to 8, I should say. And then again, we can look at the number and see if that's a number that's palpable for you folks, or if you want to go a little bit lower. But I think we all see that 15 is a number that's pretty low. In fact, if we have some, that may be staying home possibly for a while, that's a pretty lonely classroom after a while when you only have 12 kids in it. So, I think that the social development skills as well, having at least more than 15 or 12 would be a positive situation for these kids. So that would be the next set that I'll open up discussion on here if you have anything you'd like to add.
So there wouldn't be any more in-district kids coming into that 8th grade at all? That's everybody there?
That's everybody. The 2 people that are homeschooled that may return in 22,
Sure.
23, those parents have confirmed with us,
Yeah.
face to face, that they were going to be for sure doing a homeschool situation this year. One of them spoke with me in June and said, for sure, we're doing that.
Yeah.
And then again, we talked with another one, and they said, yeah, for sure, at least one more year, if not longer.
Mhm.
The only way that could change is if somebody moves into the district with an 8th grade kid and they come.
Right. That was my concern. Now if we're saying those 2 that may return plus 8 more, that already puts us at 25.
Yeah.
If we get any more kids, it's gonna be pushing it high again.
I understand. That's why I said up to. It could be a little less than that, and I'm open to that discussion for sure. Something more than 15, but
Yeah.
no more than
Right.
up to 23 or 23 total.
feel a
I
lot
understand
better
that.
if we kept it closer to 5. That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think.
I actually am not worried about it because there's always attrition after 8th grade too.
That's true, there is. I'm just, when you're looking at all of the, if this flows through, it's gonna push us to that cap again. So we get more.
I think I'd go a little bit more, I like the 5 number, but I would go maybe 6 or 7. The 8 just kind of pushes me out of my comfort zone, just because of that reason. The
Feel like that 8 is enough show back in the day.
Yeah, something. It just makes me nervous, so. I don't know, 6 or 7.
Katie O'Brien?
I would go in that 6 or 7 range just because there's 2 coming back is the only reason. Because if we're an artificially low number, we're 4 coming back.
Well,
Where'd
the
you
2
get
are already
4?
counted in there,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. I did not take those out,
Oh,
so.
Because
So it's not 2
It's not
as a
2 plus
mask
2.
and then 2, sorry, I was
It's
reading this
okay.
wrong. I
No,
was
it's
reading
okay.
it 2 plus 2.
No, it'd just
Okay.
be 2 total may return. So,
Already included.
you know, I can't put a percentage on it. It may be 100% that they come back, it may be 50%,
Yeah.
maybe 0. So again, I think up to 8 is what we would ask for, and whatever that discussion leads us to, that would be,
So that would put us at a max 24 if they were all returning.
if they all
22.
return and plus, yeah, if you had 7, then it would be 24, because it'd be 7 plus the 2. So it just depends on if you want it to be 22, 23, 24, 25.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Just
fine
that
with
way.
8 because it seems like that is
There's
to
always.
get that number is probably gonna be
Right.
an issue as well.
Say that word again, Trina, I'm not understanding.
Every year there's attrition in the 8th grade going into high school.
Like, we lost 2 kids
You
that
lose
are
them.
Oh.
going from
To go to
8th to
bigger
9th
school.
grade.
Okay.
So-
Oh,
In my daughter,
the
in my
ninth
daughter's
grade.
class,
Oh,
we
yeah.
lost 7 kids, yet she
Yeah.
started freshman year with the same number, so. Because we let it inter-district transfers in, but 8th grade is just, you know, it's a time of there's a lot of fluidness with
Yeah.
8th grade. I'm good with the number 8, I don't know that we'll get 8, but I'm great with the number 8. I'm also not worried about, you know, a class being, the 10th and 11th grade, I think are gonna be hard to add students to. So, you know, the high school has its ebbs and flows, so if they stay at 24, 25, going into 10th grade, that would be amazing.
And then lastly,
Oh, can I ask,
sure.
can I ask a question on here?
Yeah.
So the ones that say, like the mass concerns and PUD registration, and then you just don't know what they're gonna do instead, and that's why they're not in that homeschool carried over.
Yeah, because we
So
don't
you have just have
know.
a couple that have said, we're just gonna homeschool.
Well, they've said they're gonna learn from home. Some of those people are interested in is what type of option we may or may not be able to offer.
Okay.
That's a little bit different discussion, but similar, you know, that are kind of tied in with what we're talking about. But that is something we have to kind of do on the side of what we're looking at here. So right now we have those students counted as one of our Fairytale students, all of those students that are saying they may do that. You know, there are 3, as you see, one in the 3rd, 8th, and 12th grade that are actually enrolled, but mom has indicated they may stay home if that's the case.
Okay.
But, you know, that's why I put them over in this other column, even though they really would be over on that first pink column. But I moved them over there just because I thought it was more consistent to give us an accurate number of what we were looking at least at this point, to our knowledge.
Thanks.
Mhm. And then lastly, the high school, we have quite a few students on there. Will they really switch? Trina's been down this road. She stole my thunder a little bit right there, honestly, but it is harder to get students, especially if it's not going into their freshman year. It's usually harder to capture students occasionally. We get a junior or senior, but it's really difficult. Maybe if there's a sibling. We do have a couple siblings that are sophomores that probably would be very interested. At least one of them, I think, is a slam dunk. But one of them, is already established at their own school that they've been going to for high school. So if you can count last year as an established year, I guess. But, so mom wasn't sure when I spoke with mom a couple weeks ago. And they were on vacation, so I couldn't really ask. So that's where those numbers are. We do think that it's possible to, that we would get a handful, but we had said maybe up to 6. I did just change that, again, just saying up to 7. Doesn't have to be that number, but up to 7 high school students between grades. I was actually going to say 9 through 12 instead of 10 through 12, just because of what Trina mentioned. It's harder to get those high school students here. Elementary is pretty easy. Middle school, okay, and then by high school, it is more difficult.
You said up to 7 for those grades?
I just said that because we had one less. I had said 6 before, and then the one student left. Again, I just had changed it because of the number overall, but again, it's looking at it. If we said 6 still, and we tried to fill those spots, that would be fine. I mean, really, we're trying to average about 24 kids, 23 to 24 kids in our school classrooms. Really the ideal number is probably like 23 and a half, for our students. So we, try to look at, okay, if our elementary classes are around 23 to 24, and our high school, middle school classes are around 24, then that gives us those numbers that make sense to be around 312 kids. I believe it's 24 actually is 312 kids. And that's kind of what we do our budget on each year is at 312. So that would be 24 kids on average. We had talked before about the 23 number a handful of years ago. Gosh, that was about 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And when you look at that 23 number and you do that with 13 grades, that puts us at 299. And that's a big difference budget-wise. Again, not that we'd like to think of our students as dollars, but when you start looking at trying to run programs, if you have 13 less students in a school our size, that makes a difference. So.
I'm okay with the high school being up to 7. I think that's a total number. Just give my 2 cents there.
And we would probably try to see if we would start with some seniors and then probably go down. Although the sophomore and junior class, we try to fill those first probably and then go to sophomores and seniors.
And it might be different this year, depending on other schools, what they're doing, as far as for some of these high school students, if they want to be back, everybody should be going back, but you know what I mean? There's going to be some people that are looking for something different, so. And then I feel comfortable with 7 for the 8th grade. Do 7 with high school, 7 with 8th grade.
Any other thoughts on those numbers?
I'm good with it.
Good with the 7 and 7?
I'm good with 7 and 8. Isn't that what you were asking for?
Yes, before, yeah. She had just said 7. I should clarify for the record, when I said 7 and 7, 7 students for the middle school and 7 students for the high school. That's what I was talking about.
No, that just gives that.
Not alcohol.
I was not talking about soda.
That
And
gives a little
something else.
buffer for anybody moving into district or anything with that 8th grade class. They understand that it changes and stuff like that, but.
Yeah, I need a motion.
I'll move to approve 8 students for 8th grade and 7 students for high school.
I'll second that.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there any further conversation?
Do you think that we'll get 8 for 8th grade?
I think we had quite a bit of interest in between school years last year in the spring when we did this. You helped out with that. Cindy, you would agree with that we had a lot of interest if there was a move between school years. It was really tough for families after their kids had just gotten back in the building to move their students again
If
during
we
that
open it
time.
up to 8, you think that we'll get 8?
I think if we're not there, we'll be really close.
Okay.
But again, until we call them and find out, we don't want to put the cart before the horse there on that one.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of 8 students in the 8th grade and 7 students in the high school, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
No. I will break that with a aye, 3-2. Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll get on the phones tomorrow. We're on number 5.
We are.
So just wanted to give a little information. I think there's a lot of us superintendents and school board members that have been talking with our own peer groups, or some even busy working and still calling people, et cetera. But, I had an opportunity to connect with quite a few people last week that were superintendents, and got a chance to speak with both Cole Gill at a meeting I was at on Wednesday and asked some questions of him. And then also OSBA was there, COSA was there. So it was a good meeting in Eugene because a lot of the players were there. I know that the county commissioners had an opportunity to talk with the governor the other day. I don't think that went as well for that conversation as they were hoping for. But there's a lot of people in the state, there, superintendents and school board members, obviously, that are frustrated with the way that this went down. With the, here's local controls coming back in June. They reaffirmed that on July 22nd, and then on the 29th, we were told this is what's going to happen. And so immediately there was a lot of frustration. I spoke with superintendent at Culver the other day on Friday or Thursday, and we spoke for probably about 25 minutes on the phone. And, she's been trying to lead this charge for the last year about getting kids in the building, and she's pretty, frustrated with the situation, but trying to focus more on her building now instead of, stuff statewide, et cetera. But, she and a couple other superintendents in the state of Oregon were definitely more vocal about saying, we're going to keep our masks on, et cetera. And what we're hearing after the conversation we had last Monday on the phone with superintendents and Oregon Health Authority and OSBA, et cetera, and COSA is that, there were going to be some pretty serious consequences if we did that. And what you saw later on come out on Tuesday evening, I believe it was, with the rules that came out, it was $500 fine per day per occurrence. So, again, that's a somebody tournament. So if you had somebody say, okay, this is what's going on, and they come and they check, if we had 20 people that didn't have their mask on, that would be a $10,000 fine. Then they would say, if they came back again, and which they would if that happened, probably, I would if I was them, then you're going to get that fine, whatever that next one would be. And then the other thing is the license not only of your administrators, but also of, it could include your teachers as well. If you had a teacher that says, I'm not going to enforce this, then they could come after your license with TSGC. Their legal was going to talk more with TSBC, but that's the way it was presented to us. And it sounds like it was presented that way at the commissioners meeting on Friday as well. And that the governor had said that, she's not coming off this, and, be careful if you're crossing the rule. So with that being said, you know, I know that that's the reaction a lot of people have is we just are gonna go after that, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of stomach for it with the school boards and the superintendents. There are people that would like to be able to have masks be optional. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that feel that way. There's a lot of people that are okay even having masks on, but not the statewide mandate without a defined period of time, without there being kind of like the counties where they open back up. They want some type of understanding and explanation for their community members. What does this look like? But when I spoke again with a lot of these people last week, it was more of a, it's a goal, was one quote that I had. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. Another person said, you know, that's what we wanted to do until we saw the fines on Monday or what they talked about. And then when we saw the rule come out for sure on Tuesday, and that was even before the commissioner meeting. So we haven't even heard anything about that.
Did they define what the metric is that we have to meet at what point? When?
Yeah, no. My understanding from what I heard was discussed on Friday is that there would not be. And not at this time at least. So, and I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it, but we just don't know. And I think again, that's the frustration is for parents, for kids, for staff. You know, it's just really frustrating for everybody. And I sent a letter, I CC'd Trina on it, and I went to COSA on Monday last week. This is really putting our kids and our teachers and our other staff members too in a tough spot because there's going to be, if people are against it and they're saying, no, we're going to stand up to this, there's going to be two school of thoughts, right? Either keep kids out, and we're hearing now more people saying, on second thought, maybe we won't necessarily do that, but we may send our kid without a mask. And that puts the kids in a tough spot because then they're hearing from staff members who are concerned about a fine and losing their license, potentially, hey, you need to put that back on, please. And then they're hearing from parents, don't put it on, potentially. I'm not saying all parents would say that, I'm just saying some may say that. So that's gonna put the kids in a really tough spot. And that's what the first thing that I said in the letter was that. And the second thing was, if you do have a large number of kids that do leave the school, then you're really hurting schools, and especially some of our smaller schools and more rural schools that, you know, you're not gonna have as many kids in the larger towns that are leaving their school. They're gonna stay in school. And so what happens is they'll reshuffle that money. It'll be more per kid because it's the total pot, but you may have a higher percentage of kids in some of these smaller, more rural schools saying, I'm not going, I'm gonna do something else. And then that money is basically gonna get sent back up towards your larger districts, whether that's, I should say, down in Eugene or Salem or up in Portland area with all those districts.
That doesn't sound like equity in education.
It is not equity in education.
So that's where it stands now. I know there's a lot of discussion about, you know, where does it go from here? And we still have a few weeks to see if minds will be changed, but I don't think they will. And Trina doesn't feel that way. I think that the governor is saying this is what we're going to do, and I get to make that call.
And make no mistake about it, she has the authority to do that. She's been supported and already backed up by the Oregon Supreme Court, and she has a super majority, and so we can scream, we can yell, we can protest, we can hold up banners, but she was very adamant that she's not changing her mind and that she's not rescinding her mandate. So, you know, I think as long as she's in office, this is what we have.
So are parents just not gonna send their kids? You know, what happens if it gets to that point?
I think we see they're coming to school.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying,
So then we would have to try to figure out, I mean, what we don't want to do is not try to help our kids. What we can't do though, just like we said before, you know, when we were talking about some kids may stay behind, which, you know, because of the not having vaccine availability yet for their age group, we have very few of those now. I mean, some of those ones we thought they were saying yes, there's only 2 that we have. And as a result, you know, we were saying we're not going to be able to, you know, change our hours. That's still a mandate that we have to give the same hours. So we would look to, I would talk with the board, and, you know, we have a couple options we may be able to do. but that would cost money. So again, we still have to staff our classrooms with the same number of teachers. Because as you can see from the data, we're looking at 1 to 2 in a class. And not all classes, but a majority of classes. In high school, there's not as many, and kindergarten, there's not any, and ninth grade, there's not, But you start looking at that, if you start doing that too much, depending on the cost of a program, there's still a period okay, which is great, and they can come back at some point. But we're gonna have to set some type of time restraint on that or limit. We can't just have the coming and going because it doesn't mesh. So whatever program we have them do, it would have to be like for a quarter or semester at a time. You couldn't have it be 3 weeks here and 2 weeks. And our concern is then also, let's say that, and I'm not saying masks wouldn't be on students for a long time. I don't know what they would be, but let's say they come off in a couple months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever. And I'm not saying they would, but then what happens again if they have to be reinstated because there's some other type of variant? So then what are you gonna do? Are you gonna say, okay, I'm gonna pull them back out again? And there's just that flux there, it wouldn't be good, and the timing wouldn't work out well. So we would ask people to do it in increments, just like other districts have done, if we are able to come up with something. So again, we have some ideas that we could, discuss here as a group, and I could talk with each one of you individually what that would look like. But, again, it's just.
I would send a message if none of our kids show up.
So here, it wouldn't though.
It would not,
Yeah.
it wouldn't
No.
be. She doesn't
No.
care. That was not gonna send a message. That will hurt the school.
Yeah.
That
And it
will
wouldn't-
hurt the school.
It would hurt us more in the future than it would this year. So we have our numbers now, but then, we make it a May surprise where every year, they recalculate numbers. And if our numbers way down, that would hurt us for financing either then or next year. The only way that would change is if they did a smoothing where they took your highest of the 3 years. This year, they said the highest of 2 years because of last year. So they gave you that higher the 2 years. Well, they would have to change that in the short session next January. That would probably be the most likely if they were going to do it, but there's no guarantee on that. So we may not know until, when's the short session in March?
Beginning of first week of March.
So we may not know until first week of March. I mean, that's a lot of pins and needles for us as a district, and it probably wouldn't accomplish much there. Even if you had 1,000, 2,000 kids doing it in the state, I don't know if that would really change anything. And I don't think any of the other superintendents I've talked to feel the same way, and I know Trina, talking with her, she doesn't really feel that way.
No,
either.
I just have gotten that from the parents that have, reached out to me and just have, trying to express the frustration with that and trying to figure out how to, send that message. I did pass along those emails that you had sent to me were, the people that they could write to with Senator Bookquist and the governor and stuff like that, so. But they're feeling really frustrated, the ones
Well,
that.
there's
have reached
nothing
out to
any
me,
of them can do.
For sure.
There's nothing any of them can do. Our senator can't do anything, our representative can't do anything. You have a couple options. You can try to recall Kate Brown. There's not enough time or money to do that, probably by the May ballot, and we're electing a new governor anyway. You can try to fight her at the Supreme Court, but it's a super majority and you will not win that. It's already been decided. There's nothing, she legally has the right to
I get
do.
it, but I just,
There's
just
nothing.
trying to get those parents, I feel their frustration with it, with not having any kind of, metrics or,
Then
anything
Oregonians
from
need
that,
to, then Oregonians need to vote different.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to show up, we need to vote different, we need to balance our local government. We can't have a super majority and think that this wouldn't happen to us.
So those are the updates, and there's no action on any of that, just saying that, we were talking with people, we were listening, we were, trying to find out what's being said. There is another session for you folks tomorrow. I don't know if any of you signed up for that listening session for OSBA members tomorrow. That's at 5:30. That was letter B. I have a meeting tomorrow. I think it's at 2 to 3:30 or something like that. I'll have to double check, but and then the OSB one starts after that. So
Are we gonna join the letter from Jeff Clark?
I don't know, we haven't, been- I can send that to everybody and see if they would like to. I think that would be something I want to send out to.
Yeah. As long as it was respectful and had no, the truth of the matter is, as Perrydale Pirates, we need to teach our students and lead by example to follow the laws. It's a Oregon administrative rule, and we need to follow it. I don't like it, but we need to follow it, and so, definitely we don't need to send a message to Governor Brown that we are not going to follow it. But to let her know that we're unhappy and that we want local control back, I'm in favor of that. Although I don't believe she'll even read it.
She will not.
Dan, can you send information on the meeting tomorrow, the listening session tomorrow?
I can send it to you right now.
Yeah, so if you need help signing up, you're a new board member, by the way, obviously. So you'll have
Really, I
to
wasn't
get some,
aware.
you'll have to get some of that, like you did now. But you have to make sure that you, get signed up.
Okay.
I don't think you have that yet. Cindy, do you have time? You may be able to help out with that if needed tomorrow
For what?
For Kate.
to get her signed up,
You
Katie.
can
For
call
email?
SDA and they'll help.
No.
Oh,
for
yeah, 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 for the
OSBA
webinar.
to-
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do we have an email for Katie yet also?
Our IT guy is out with illness right now, so he's gonna probably be out for a little bit, so when he
Yeah,
gets
I'd like
back, he
to-
knows it's on his list, but he
Okay.
can't do it right
Yeah, no worries on that, but I'd like to listen tomorrow.
I forwarded it.
now. And then she'll try to get you a username and password for that tomorrow while you're
Okay.
working and try to get that set up. And then I'll forward each of you the letter that Amity was drafting, but it's with other school districts as well.
They're just trying to get other districts to join the letter, just saying we want local control. It's pretty simple.
And I just put you again on there as viewers, that way if you have any comments, you can then respond and not with the group, that way we're doing it the right way.
Along the line of, communications with other districts and statewide groups and agencies, many of the school board chairs are getting together and wanting to have this similar type letter. I've been asked to draft it, so I didn't want to act on behalf of our board without letting each of you know that, seeing if any of you are opposed to me participating in that.
Not at all. I think you've got the idea with it being positive and that kind of thing, because.
We don't need to draw negative
No,
attention
that's
to
what I'm
us.
saying. I think that's the way to go.
And I don't want to put a bullseye on our superintendent and the rest of our administration's backs either. Now, you guys do know that we can't suspend students. We're not going to send them home. There's really no consequence if they defy us to put their mask on, is there?
At this time, probably not like that, no. But, I mean, wait for it.
Wait for a week, you're right.
I don't know. I mean, that's again, one of the questions I had was, so what happens if this happens? What are we supposed to do? Nobody, and this is what I shared with a parent the other day. Nobody wants kids out of the building. Not any of us in here, not the parents, not the kids, not the staff, obviously, not the governor in her own way. People want kids in the building. So, I think that's loud and clear. But then what happens going forward? But again, not putting the kids and not putting the staff in a tough spot. It's going to be a weird balance. For sure. You want to add anything?
No, just my one thought is, when students show up not wearing them, and there's we can't send them home, we can't send the message to everybody else that these kids don't have to wear them, but the others do. I think that's gonna be a big challenge.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is going to be on this during those circumstances, no idea.
And that's what's sad about this whole thing is It's like kids are now becoming political pawns.
They are, and they're not equipped for it. It's not their job.
They just need to come to school to learn.
They've had it hard enough here as it is, they just need to.
We did have the situation just a little bit over summer school in it. To see a kids sitting there shaking, not sure what to do because family's saying one thing, school's saying another thing. It's just not fair. It's not fair to anybody. The staff members may or may not agree with the rule and they're having to enforce it with a kiddo that's clearly not ready to manage the situation she's in. And I think that that's what we're going to be facing this school year. We have to be prepared for it somehow.
So we'll definitely address that, in our in-service week and go over that type of scenario. And the word race will probably come up a little bit with kids and how we're interacting with them. And I'm hoping that, everybody else, we'll have that grace for our staff too, and with parents and understand our teachers are trying to do their best with that situation. I think our parents will do that, but I know it's a frustrating situation for a lot of parents.
Well, I would hope that everybody would encourage their children as they come to school to follow the law, because being good citizens is one of the things I've always loved about Perryville. And raising good citizens is what we do. That's part of the education process. I'm not happy about the lack of local control. I think there's definitely some really well-equipped and successful professionals, both at Polk County Health Department and at Perrydale School District. And I don't think that our governor should be telling those professionals how to do their job. Guidelines are fantastic and we can work with that, but they don't have a guideline, we have a mandate, and that's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And it's a very helpless feeling, and I feel it for our parents and for our staff, because it is a helpless situation. I spent 5 days talking to lawyers, legal, OSBA, other districts, everywhere I could. Our state senator, our state representative. I searched high and low for a loophole to fight what was being forced upon us. And there isn't any way out of it legally.
Are we gonna have that same gal from Polk County back here doing our counseling, our counselor?
Yes.
Heather?
Haley.
What's her name? Haley?
Here.
So maybe just having her, with school getting back and forth and stuff, getting back started, just, I would assume she would be on board with kids that were needing to navigate that uncertain time, maybe needing to talk about it some more. I like to get kids talking, that a lot of stuff can be solved by that, so.
Anybody else have anything else they want to say or talk about? I don't know. I think it's probably good to express ourselves a little bit. I mean, it's the right time.
I think it lets our community know too that, we're not just keeping it, either we're unhappy with it just like they are, so.
All right, I'll say something then, because I'm really frustrated that as a board, we have tried very hard to give this administration the ability to run the school as they see fit. And we get told all the time by OSBA and other places to let them be able to do their jobs. And now they're telling you guys how to do your jobs. And that's ridiculous. How are you supposed to manage that? That's not right. And we talk about local control, and you guys are supposed to be the ones to be able to implement what works well for our school. We have had 0 cases of COVID over the summer, during our summer school, 0. And I don't think every school is measured the same way. Those in Portland Public School it's a much bigger district. Salem Kaiser is a much bigger district than us. I don't think we should measure them all the same. And the fact that local control is missing is a problem. And it frustrates me for you guys, it frustrates me for us.
And our parents.
So, and absolutely, and parents. Because now there's a division, and I don't like division. It's terrible for kids to learn. It's not equitable in school learning. This isn't right.
Well,
That's just my opinion. I know I'm getting cranky, so I'm gonna stop, but.
Well, I just say, I think that's why, you know, even though it might not change the wheel anymore, but having a superintendent letter or school board chair letter is really important because it gives, you know, parents and kids in our district also some representation and a voice, because I know families are really frustrated right now. So I appreciate you guys doing that.
I want to say that some of the conversations I've had with parents, they've been very respectful with the school. They're not mad at the school.
It's because they know it's not you.
Yeah,
not
and
you guys.
so I just want to say that if there are any families listening tonight or watching that, you know, I do appreciate those conversations. I've tried to have those conversations with parents over the last week. And I'm sure a lot of you have too, it sounds like, but I do appreciate the conversation and the tone of the conversation with us. They expressing their frustration, but they know it's not the school board or myself or Christy that are saying certain things.
I've worked pretty hard I'm not trying to ignore people who reach out to me, but I'm trying to also not have those one-on-one conversations with parents, because we should be, as a board, meeting with them. If they want to come and speak to us, then we should hear that. All information that we gather should be brought to the whole board. And so I've made sure that I haven't responded. I've listened, I've read everybody's emails. I appreciate them. I'm not responding because I don't want it to be a one-on-one. Trina's gathering information from the community instead of the board.
Well, there's a policy against that.
There's a policy.
So we
against
can't do
that.
that.
So I just want people, I guess I want to publicly say, if I haven't responded to your email, it's because I'm trying to follow the rules. But I appreciate the letters, the emails, I've read them. I even had a local parent call me multiple times. I didn't answer the phone. And then finally, somebody from the office at work called me and said, hey, so-and-so's trying to get a hold of you about trucking. And I thought they were calling to complain about school board, so I wasn't answering. So I apologize for that.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, you're looking at Brian,
I'm
so.
right.
No, I know, I think that everything's been said, and I will say the absolute wrong thing, because I'm on the side of, there's absolutely no science behind what they're doing right now. There's been numerous articles, heck, it even came out on CNN where they said that masks don't do anything, and yet we're forcing them onto our kids. It just goes by the rule that it's a power grab, right? You don't have them on after school. Hit sports, you can go tackle people, you can go play basketball and be right next to people and breathing heavy, but you don't have to wear them, but you have to wear them when you're in school. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. And that's what is extremely frustrating with not having your own choice. And I fear for the time when the vaccine gets emergency approval or even an FDA approval for young kids, and it starts getting forced on people. Because That's what they're trying to do to everybody right now, is force it on them. Everybody should have their own choice.
I agree. Well, not to, if anybody else wants to say something, I'll let you speak, but if not, patron input, this is the time for visitors and patrons to comments that did not meet the 2-week notice requirement to be placed on the agenda may be heard. Such unplanned comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person with a maximum of 30 minutes for total discussion.
She said no.
Okay,
Jessica said no. She did not want
Jessica
to talk.
said no. All right, board comments. I like the long name already.
We've had that section.
All right, 7:51, meeting is adjourned. I think when I said adjourned, it turned to 7:52.
It's okay.